Welcome. I am Daisy, your hostess. You're joining me for the reading of the book titled You're Better Than You Think by Dora Albert. If you are egotistical and self-absorbed, you might be saying, "Tell me something new. I know I'm better than I think." Unfortunately, there are some people that don't think much of themselves, and because of that, are often overlooked when time for promotions or raises or endeavors where group collaboration is involved. They're not as lucky as you know you are. And I'm not being critical about people with big egos. Many CEOs, lawyers, politicians, sales managers, high-level finance professionals, and bedazzled artists are top dogs in their field. Many of us would benefit by ripping a page from their playbook if we are willing to pay the price, because the best of them have developed the ability to balance their strengths with team dynamics, making them likable, which of course this author also did discuss that in the previous chapters, which if you're new to my channel, you can find the earlier chapters of this 4-part video in my playlist. Now, this book is tailored for those people who have not come to their full potential in knowing that they are better than they think, if they only stop to find the diamond within. In the next few chapters, the author will share suggestions on what to do about it, addressing issues on how to attain your goals, how to integrate in your community, and best of all, on how to conquer your fears. Which, for that chapter alone, I think this book is worth the read, even though it seems a bit antiquarian. But like I mentioned before, there are golden nuggets in many old books, because in the course of my own lifetime, I've come across situations where I could have defined a paralyzing moment due to fear, and while the author may not describe it the way that I do, it's still the same concept. For me, I believe that fear is a state of apprehension due to lack of information about something or someone, or this state of apprehension could be possibly relating to an event that was similar in regards to a previous experience that brought on a negative outcome from the past. So because we're all unique, one size does not fit all. That's my belief. But I've learned that for each size, there is a perfect fit, meaning that there is a unique way to deal with what we fear in a way that allows us individually to move forward while opening from within, like a lotus, the understanding or the cause of our fear. And until we can pinpoint what that is, it's really hard for us to move on. But with our own way, once we understand that there is this just a state, and if we're willing to transcend that, we can overcome our fears. So now, as I'm ready to turn the page, I hope that you can find a golden nugget or two that will help you shine a little more brighter. Part 3. What to do about it. Chapter 14. How to attain your goals. You are more attractive, healthy, intelligent, able, creative, and lovable than you thought. You can improve upon these qualities by exerting greater effort. As someone once said, the greatest room in the world is the room for self-improvement. However, you can use your abilities to create a richer, fuller life for yourself only if you know what you consider a rich, full life. Formula for success. Dr. Charlotte Buehler and her associates at a psychological institute in Vienna studied the lives of 200 famous men and women. They discovered that in every case there was a self-selected goal that directed all the energies of the individual. What are your goals in life? Write down your 5 greatest general goals. If you have difficulty in figuring out 5 important goals, skip the question for the moment and come back to it when you finish this chapter. You should have a vocational goal, a financial goal, a social goal, a love goal, and a goal for the development of your personality. Lee Bunnell, the insurance executive, and Gail Storm, his wife, the TV star, examine their own goals at intervals to see if they are neglecting one phase of their lives in the pursuit of other ends. They feel it is just as important to devote time and effort to the pursuit of a spiritual altruistic goal as it is to devote a certain amount of time in their work. The power of a vocational goal. For most of us, it is extremely important to find a worthwhile vocational goal. Did you ever hear of a man, wrote Henry David Thoreau, the great naturalist and author, who had striven all his life faithfully and singly toward an object, and in no measure obtained it? It's a little uncanny, this matter of goals, said Sidney and Mary Eldlund, who run the Man Marketing Clinic, in their book, Pick Your Job and Land It. When you work out for yourself just what you want to do now and where you want to be 5 or 10 years from now, you become a new person. You read different things, you say different things, you think different thoughts. Your whole bearing changes, becomes more positive. Your voice becomes more buoyant. You radiate force and energy, and people respect you more when you know where you are going. Management sits up and takes notice. The power of a distant goal. The power to visualize a distant goal doesn't come naturally to everyone. Johnson O'Connor, the fascinating man who pioneered in research work and aptitude testing, finds that individuals differ greatly in their ability to look at distant goal and make sacrifices to achieve it. Often, he says, a man will quit high school without getting his diploma because he hasn't enough foresight to see that a high school education may be of value later on. Another individual with a little more foresight may go to college for a few years, then quit for no good reason when, with a little more effort, he could win a college degree. However, he also believes that a man lacking in the feeling for a remote goal can still achieve one. How to direct yourself toward a distant goal. 1. Give yourself road signs. One method to direct yourself toward such a goal is to give yourself road signs every few feet of the way. For instance, a client of one of Mr. O'Connor's human engineering laboratories in the East was a young man who wanted to become a surgeon. He had all the qualifications except that he lacked the feeling of willingness to work for a remote goal. Without a view of the ultimate goal in mind, a medical student wouldn't have the patience to go through years of struggle while gaining an education and working for a pittance as an intern. Advice to those who need training in foresight. Mr. O'Connor advised the young medical student, write down what you want to achieve, then frame the paper on which you have written it, and hang it on the wall. The young man followed Mr. O'Connor's advice. On the walls of his study, he hung samplers and signs that constantly remind him of his goal. I want to become a successful surgeon. Eventually, he achieved this. He and Mr. O'Connor recently met again, and Mr. O'Connor congratulated him on his successful career. How to get where you'd like to go even though you lack foresight. He chuckled. Those signs, he laughed, helped me to get through medical school, but even today, by nature, I remain a low foresight person, always distracted by an immediate problem. Do you know I still have to make signs to remind myself that there are certain medical conventions I should attend? If it were not for these signs reminding me of my objective, I would run to the bedside of the first person calling me for help and miss the important medical conventions. And I would do this in spite of the fact that I'd arranged for a very capable person to take over my practice during my absence. Do you know how I make sure that I won't miss the important medical conventions? First, I make all my arrangements. Then, using watercolors, I paint a rather attractive sign, decorate with a few flowers, and hang it up on the wall of my bedroom. Every morning and evening, I am reminded of my purpose. I am going to attend the blank medical convention. A distant goal can help you overcome obstacles. The way in which a distant goal can help you achieve your purpose in spite of obstacles is illustrated by the story of 2 other medical students who came to the Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation in New York City for aptitude testing. One wanted to go into diagnostic medicine, the other into psychiatry. Both had all the aptitudes needed, except for the ability to see things in 3 dimensions. Mr. O'Connor told each of them, "You could be very successful in the field of your choice, but you'll flunk anatomy in your first year at the medical school. That's because you lack structural visualization." Since they all had other necessary aptitudes, they decided to chance it. Both flunked anatomy, although they did well in their other studies. They decided to take the anatomy course again, and both flunked for the second time. The dean of their school had run out of patience. He told both men that they might as well quit the study of medicine. They asked him to call Mr. O'Connor for an explanation of their peculiar problem. The dean called, and Mr. O'Connor explained that they lacked the structural visualization that would have helped them pass anatomy, but that they would not need it for their particular specialties. He persuaded the dean to give them another chance. The third time, both men passed the course and proceeded to become successful in their particular specialties. After flunking anatomy twice, they never would have gone ahead with medicine if their aptitude test hadn't shown that in every other respect they were well qualified, says Mr. O'Connor. Lack of foresight can stymie you. By contrast, there was the salesman whose aptitude test proved he'd make an excellent writer. Mr. O'Connor advised him to enroll at Columbia University for a special writing course where he would have to produce a short piece of work every day. The salesman, a man of rather low foresight, immediately thought of a dozen reasons for not taking the course. Mr. O'Connor finally talked him into going to the university to have a talk with the dean about it. By this time, he was willing to take the course, but he doubted that he would be admitted. A few days later, he was back in Mr. O'Connor's office. He said he had made the trip to the university but hadn't seen the dean. He just hadn't been able to find any place to park. Had he greater foresight, he would have parked the car miles away if necessary and taken a bus or the subway to the university. 2. Start where you are with what you have. Sometimes it is difficult to see ahead to the distant goal. In that case, start where you are with what you have. You may have to keep working at various jobs until you can analyze where you shine and follow that path in the future. For instance, one young man tried various office and selling jobs until he discovered that the work he really enjoyed most was handling customer complaints. He then decided to become a specialist in this field, and today he is regarded as an expert on customers' complaint problems. Originally a minor clerk, he has now become the supervisor of the complaint department of a large Eastern department store. Many set their goals too low. According to Mr. O'Connor, who certainly should know, most of us set our goals too low. He showed me a number of charts of different individuals, and I was shocked at the discrepancy between what some of them could do and what they were doing. This was particularly true of low foresight people with many aptitudes. On the one hand were men with few aptitudes who, by hitting at a single target, had reached the top. On the other hand, there is a 34-year-old truck driver with 87% tonal memory, 96% ability at learning languages, high creative thinking ability, tremendous ability to visualize in 3 dimensions. He should be a city planner, says Mr. O'Connor confidently. He has all the aptitudes he needs for such a career. Such a goal for a truck driver may seem fantastic, but it's weird the way seemingly fantastic goals can be realized once a person realizes what his aptitudes are. I have persuaded this man to start out by taking evening courses in city planning and in architecture. I saw the chart of a milkman who may someday startle the world by becoming a great artist. According to Mr. O'Connor, he definitely belongs in the field of fine arts. The janitor with mechanical ability. A machine shop owner in Boston once sent the janitor who swept out the place to Mr. O'Connor for testing. Perhaps he meant this gesture as a practical joke. His attitude was, let's see you find any real aptitude in this man. Mr. O'Connor found that the janitor had real mechanical ability and reported this to the owner of the machine shop. He was greatly amused. You mean to tell me John could run one of our machines? Ridiculous. One day the man who operated the grinding machine became ill and left. In desperation, the machine shop owner tried the janitor out on this job. To his surprise, John made good. In fact, he did so well he was kept on the machine. Later, the shop owner called Mr. O'Connor and asked him to send a janitor who could do nothing but sweep floors. Mr. O'Connor had a pukish sense of humor. He sent a janitor with a structural visualization. That janitor is now in charge of the entire machine shop. How to decide your goals. Mr. O'Connor's view on goals are interesting. The first thing you have to decide is how much money you want and how badly you want it. Some will give up their whole life to money. Others would rather devote themselves to art or to serving other people. If money is the main objective, it frequently requires a tremendous number of sacrifices in other directions. For in that case, you have to compete with others who are also making money their main objective. If a man is extremely talented, he should forget money and work so hard doing what he wants to do that he will get to the top of his particular field. Success is never easy to define because it depends on your individual goal. Try to get your conscious and unconscious purposes in harmony with each other. In order to achieve any worthwhile goal, we must learn to make our conscious and unconscious minds work in complete harmony with each other. If our conscious mind says, I want to be a successful writer, or painter, or salesman, and our unconscious mind says, that is not my desire, the unconscious will usually win. Lawrence Gold, the psychologist, says, many a man has been puzzled at the lack of results from his grim determination to succeed, when his real unconscious desire was to have a good time and to take life easy. A picture that often comes into my mind is the scene of the old-fashioned melodrama where the heroine pretends to yield to the villain's embraces, but behind her back waves a white handkerchief to call the hero to her rescue. Our unconscious mind frequently waves these white handkerchiefs. The white handkerchiefs it is waving come in the form of desires, drives, and intense wishes. The unconscious will do everything in its power to achieve its goals. Sometimes its aims are very good for us. At other times, they may be dangerously self-destructive. If they are destroying us, as shown by too much dependence on drink, laziness, or failure to make any progress, we either need help from a reliable therapist or intelligent use of the power of self-suggestion. How to find out what your unconscious goals have been. If you want to know what your own unconscious goals have been, look around you. Take a look at yourself in a full-length mirror. What sort of person are you, slim or stout? How do you dress, neatly or carelessly? Look at the room in which you are sitting. Is it neat or disorderly? Who is living with you? Are you a bachelor? If you're married, what sort of a wife did you choose? What sort of a home do you live in? Or is it an apartment? Do you have a garden, a workshop, a car, a TV set? Every single material possession around you represents a small, possibly unconscious goal that eventually found material expression. Every detail of your life was actually the result of an aim selected by your unconscious mind for the fulfillment of an unconscious purpose. To achieve a worthwhile goal, it is first necessary to find out what you have been unconsciously aiming for. You have to pay the price for any goal. If you say you want something, but after years of striving have not attained anything close to your goal, then you have refused to pay the price. Most likely, you have substituted a different goal, your unconscious mind. For instance, to one of the psychological service centers of a fine university came a bitterly discouraged college graduate in his early 30s. Though he was an intelligent adult for whom most of us would have predicted success, he had failed at everything he had tried. In addition, he was suffering from anxiety attacks and stomach upsets. Fear of a father figure was the cause of his troubles. He believed that he couldn't live up to the achievements of his illustrious father. To him, the father figure was an awesome one. Rather than compete with his father, he always gave up early on the path to any achievement. He would become so ill, he would have to quit each job he undertook. The real cause of his illness wasn't physical. It served his unconscious purpose of punishing his father for having set such high standards. Each time he failed, his father was upset. How the will to fail was changed into a desire to succeed. In the treatment situation, the university therapist established a relationship with the boy somewhat similar to that which had prevailed between him and his father. In this setting, The boy displayed toward his therapist the fear and competitiveness he felt for his father. Gradually, the therapist was able to help him achieve the extinction of these attitudes, which were the cause of his failure. Unconsciously, he had willed to fail because of fear and envy of his father. As he got over his vindictive and envious feelings toward his father, he acquired more positive feelings about himself, including greater faith in himself. With renewed self-confidence, he lost his fear that success might place him in dangerous competition with his father. Feelings of guilt and inadequacy were dissipated and replaced by more positive emotions that enable him to utilize his capacities more fully. Unconscious goals resulting from strained relations with one's parents often lead to an unconscious will to fail. Hatred for others must be faced, not suppressed. If you can't express such emotions any other way, go out to a hilltop when no one is looking and tell the hills what you really think of your father or your boss. Then have a good laugh at yourself. Remember that he's only another human being, doing his best and making the same awkward mistakes you'll probably make as a parent. If you don't want to sound like an idiot, shouting your hatred to the hills, go to see some sensible person, possibly the therapist of a nearby college or a clinical psychologist recommended by him or by your doctor, or see your minister. Nowadays, most ministers receive a fairly thorough grounding in what makes human beings tick. If they can't solve your problems themselves, they'll refer you to an honest psychiatrist or psychologist, not a quack. Attitudes toward parents, particularly the father figure, are so vital that the Menninger Clinic in Topeka, Kansas, has been holding seminars on the subject for top executives. Those who run the clinic believe that business is full of father figures, with sub-executives who fight each other all the time, like anxious brothers and sisters competing for the love of parents. But let's get back to you. How specifically can you get your conscious and unconscious mind working in harmony to achieve the same goals? Your unconscious mind will listen to suggestions. The most hopeful thing to remember about the unconscious mind is that it is amenable to suggestion. Keep pouring positive suggestions from your conscious mind into your unconscious, and the unconscious mind will soon accept the suggestion. If you want to know what kind of ideas your mind is really thinking, sit down and jot down everything you can think of in the next 10 minutes. Don't try to write coherently, just jump from one thought to another. When you have finished, take a look at what you have written. Were your thoughts constructive, helpful, glowing with hope, or were they destructive, negative, and bitter? An advertising man who tried this was so shocked by his findings that he decided to assume control over his own mind. He knew enough about the mind to know that one can choose what one thinks. He decided to fill his mind with positive thoughts. The best time to think constructive thoughts that will influence your unconscious mind is just before you drift into sleep at night. In that relaxed, half-conscious state, instead of counting sheep, paint a mental picture of what you want to be in the future. Don't aim at being a carbon copy of someone else. We make a great mistake when we want to be exactly like John or Mary or Jimmy. No other person is an exact model for us to follow. John may have one trait we'd like to add to our personality. If he's extremely tactful, for instance, we can listen to him, watch how he handles difficult situations, and how careful he is to sense how the other person feels before he opens his mouth. We can copy individual characteristics we admire. We can emulate John in tact. We may also want to learn from others how best to develop certain worthwhile qualities in ourselves. But anyone who says he wishes he could be someone else is usually lying to himself. God made each of us an individual. We have no more reason for trying to be exactly like the other fellow than the mountain ash in my backyard has reason for trying to be like the sycamore tree. Whatever your goal may be, it is necessary to take the first step toward it immediately. The first step is to visualize either a distant or immediate goal. If it's a distant goal, break it up into parts. The next step is to visualize the specific material goals you wish. Put a bulletin board on the back of one of the doors in your home where you will see it every day. Mine is in the room I use as an office. On this board, tag pictures of the objects you want. For instance, if you want a new home, try to find photos that are as much like the home you want as possible. If you want a Ford station wagon, put a photograph of one on your bulletin board. If you want a new desk, place a photo of one on the same bulletin board. Look at these photos before you go to bed each night, knowing that if you work to have these material blessings, you will get them. Thought by itself will not bring them to you, but thinking about what you want will give you motive power. Looking at these photos reminds the unconscious mind of your goal. Another method, select the one material thing you want most badly. Put a photograph of it in your wallet or in the glove compartment of your car. Here's what actually happened to a young man who did this. John M. Wilson, vice president in charge of sales for a national cash register company, told the story in an article in Salesman Opportunity in 1955. A young man applied for a job with his company about 12 years ago. After putting him through the usual checking procedures, the division manager decided not to hire him. Although he had an excellent record, it seemed to the division manager that he lacked drive and aggressiveness. The young salesman took out his wallet to hand his card to the man who was interviewing him. A photo fell to the floor. It was a picture of a very impressive-looking home. "What's this?" asked the division manager, startled. The young man was embarrassed but answered, "The home I hope to own one day." He took another look at this prospective employee. No drive, no aggressiveness. That just couldn't be so. A young man without drive would not have such a specific goal. As John M. Wilson explains, his particular objective had the added incentive of an emotional appeal because of his love for his family. An objective that is tied up with an emotional appeal is a much greater spur to self-motivation than a purely mercenary one. He was hired immediately, and he continued to forge ahead. Today, he has the home of his dreams and is constantly raising his goals. Start doing something about it now. Like this young man, you have to have definite goals. You also have to get off your duff to be a success at anything. You have to start doing something about it now. If you're going to be a great novelist, you had better practice writing at least 1 hour a day, starting today. If you plan to be a successful salesman, you'd better call on some prospects today. If you hope someday to own your own business, you'd better decide how much money you'll need to launch yourself and start saving. There's only one time to take the first step toward realizing your goal. Right this minute. I love this line in a recent bulletin sent me by a Commonwealth Building and Loan Association of North Hollywood. Quote, "Getting an idea should be like sitting down on a pin. It should make you jump up and do something about it." End quote. A simple plan for achieving your goals. 1. Find out what your unconscious goal is by studying what you have accomplished so far. 2. Figure out whether your conscious goal corresponds with the things you do. For instance, if your goal is success and you're drinking your way to failure, whom are you kidding? 3. Visualize yourself successfully realizing and achieving your goal. 4. Write a summary to yourself, telling yourself exactly what specific steps are needed to achieve it. If you need additional educational training, write down what kind of training, then plan to get it. 5. Write a letter or make a phone call that will help you take the next step toward your goal. 6. Include recreation and fun in your goals. Plan some healthful recreational activity at least once a week. 7. Make sure that your goals are consistent with your self-esteem. If you have to kick someone else to achieve your goal, you won't be happy reaching it. 8. Make sure that your goal represents something you want to do, not just what you think you ought to do. Regardless of what your parents or friends think you ought to do, examine your own heart and mind. Chapter 15, How to Be a Power in Your Community. Dr. Hugh M. Tyner, former president of Pepperdine College, is a leader in important community activities in Southern California. His approval is eagerly sought for almost every vital civic activity in Southern California. He is, for instance, a member of the board of directors of the Los Angeles World Affairs Council, director of the Los Angeles chapter of the American Association for the United Nations, and a member of the Board of Directors of the California Safety Council. I could fill this page with a list of the important positions he holds and has held in community affairs. Here's something Dr. Tyner has to say that may be helpful to you and me. Most men and women dream of leading thousands, perhaps millions of others. Actually, however, leadership always begins with two people. If you can give one other person besides yourself a feeling of worthwhileness of his life, if you can help him with his problems and enable him to see where his abilities can lead, you will be a leader in his eyes. That is the first step every leader must take, to influence and help one person. No man, as John Donne once pointed out, is an island detached from another man. We are all pieces of the main land. Therefore, it is perfectly natural that we should all want to make ourselves count with others. But what is leadership? How can we achieve our proper place in our communities without getting a reputation for being pushy and unpleasantly aggressive? Aggressiveness doesn't always make you unpopular in a group. A study made by Dr. Merle A. Boney, psychologist at the North Texas State College, proved that aggressiveness doesn't necessarily make one unpopular in a group. He tested a group of children, but his results have also been applied to adults. His findings are described in Dr. Albert Edwards Wigham's helpful book, New Techniques of Happiness. The most popular children in a group, Dr. Boney discovered, stood high not only in friendliness, but also in the very traits that are supposed to make you unpopular. They were talkative, a bit bossy, attention-getting, aggressive, and daring. You must make yourself count in a group. The nice, weak-chinned individuals who never dared put forth their own views were not sought after. Said Dr. Boney, to be popular, a person must make himself count in a group. He also added, it equally evident that no child or adult is liked because of any particular traits, but because of the total impression he makes on his group. I have found in many studies that a person is well accepted more because of what he is and does in the way of making a contribution to the group than because of one or more of the traits usually considered necessary for winning friends. Even if you have a moderate amount of obnoxious traits, such as being bossy or untidy, you may yet be the most popular member of your group if you have strong, aggressive traits which contribute to group success. Try to do things for the group. Dr. Boney found that one of the most popular boys in the group he studied was constantly grabbing opportunities to be of service. He was the one who pulled the curtains for the class play, ran the errands, looked after the classroom pets, and did fairly well for his team on the playground. He also did his best to influence the other children to play fair in all their games. They accepted his leadership because they saw that he was primarily interested in promoting his group, not himself. Put service ahead of self. In the same way, every adult who puts service ahead of self can become important in any group in which he is seriously interested. A friend of mine, Jerry Clark, who had always been seriously devoted to his work as a chemist, suddenly sprouted out in a new direction. He has helped with construction activities and repairs for his church, and he has become supervisor of construction activities for the nursery school his youngest daughter attends. When I asked him about these new activities, he was rather embarrassed and said that he honestly didn't want them given any publicity. I don't know what other men's motives are in doing community work, said his wife. I know Jerry accepted these responsibilities because he knew that there was a job that needed to be done, and he had a pretty good idea of how it should be done. Jerry had built his own very attractive home a few years previously. Some men may go into community activities to win friends or the approval of their associates. If those are their main motives, they are very foolish. For doing a good job for his community cuts tremendously into a man's free time. Such an expenditure of effort and time is worthwhile only if a man feels the job is worth doing for its own sake. Find a community activity you consider worthwhile. Most groups are sadly in need of workers willing to do all kinds of difficult jobs. Since desirable community activities often start in a small way, the important step is to make sure that you consider the job worthwhile before you undertake it. The qualities that make for leadership. Have you the qualities that make a good leader? The importance of having the courage of your convictions. At the University of California in Berkeley, some of the qualities of leadership have been tested by the Institute of Personality Assessment and Research. One of the most important qualities was discovered to be having the courage of your own convictions. A group of 100 were tested on their tendency to conform to what others thought. Sooner or later, each man found himself in a position where he had to make the last response in a group. Before he made it, certain lights flashed, indicating what the responses of others had been. Actually, these were miscues. But he had no way of knowing that. He realized that his own opinion was apparently contrary to that of a highly respected group of men. Would he change his opinion or cling to it in the face of the differing opinions of the others? The American Psychologist, Volume 10, Number 5, May 1955, published by the American Psychological Association, reported the results of this experiment. The experimenters found that the men who didn't have the courage of their own convictions were submissive, compliant, had a narrow range of interests, were unable to make decisions without vacillation, and were poor leaders. Those who clung to their opinions when they were right, even though they believed others held contrary views, were efficient, capable, persuasive, self-reliant, and independent in judgment. They were very effective leaders. Other qualities found in leaders. Among the other traits found in leaders were tolerance, social participation, and a sense of responsibility. Of course, concluded Richard S. Crutchfield, the psychologist who reported on this important study, a good leader will differentiate between poor and superior group judgment. He will oppose group judgment only when it is inferior. But what of you and me? Sometimes we have the courage of our convictions and sometimes we haven't. Sometimes we stand up and express our opinions and sometimes we'd rather be quiet. We don't know whether we're primarily leaders or followers. Can we also be important in group activities? You can become a leader if your motivation is strong. Anyone can, if he is filled with a sense of the importance of the job he wants to do. To become a leader, you must begin with something in which you earnestly believe. The woman who wanted shade trees for her street. For instance, Mrs. Florence P. Dwyer, Congresswoman from New Jersey during Eisenhower's second administration, got into politics originally because she wanted to get trees to shade the street in Elizabeth, New Jersey, where she and her husband had purchased a home. She became a committeewoman, then secretary to a congressman, then an assemblywoman for 4 terms. While she was an assemblywoman, she helped push through equal wages for men and women in New Jersey, helped get the teachers a raise, and persuaded the lawmakers of New Jersey to raise the age limit at which youngsters can be served hard liquor to 21. The tragedy that led to an important community activity. Sometimes it may take a personal tragedy to awaken you to a community need you can help fill. Lee Marino, vice president and comptroller of a New York City bank, suffered a great shock with the birth of his second daughter, who turned out to be mentally retarded. At first, his grief was almost more than he could bear. He and his wife wondered why this tragedy had been visited on them. An article by Dorothy Shensa Miller in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, June 25, 1953, tells what happened next. Then, ever so slowly, he learned about the other parents like him, and he began to realize their needs, so like his own. He founded the Essex chapter and became the first president of the New Jersey Association for Retarded Children. all thoughts of self and his individual grief gradually gave way to serving others. "I have a very large family," Mr. Marino said with a flash of his very candid smile. "I feel like a father to all retarded children. At least I fight hard for their welfare." Today he gives up all his spare time to helping other parents of retarded children. At one time, he was a Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus, and he also used to spend part of his spare time playing the violin and golfing. Now he has given up these other activities. He travels throughout the country, lecturing to parents and the needs of retarded children. In New Jersey, he instituted legislation to make it possible for retarded children to attend special classes in the public schools. Previously, the 4 state institutions in New Jersey had been inadequate to care for all these youngsters, and no provision had been made for those who needed educational training while they remained at home. A mission with a motive. To Mr. Marino, the work he is doing in his spare time has become almost a mission in life. "The work I do is tremendously satisfying," he has said. "It provides an outlet for something that needed to be done. My wife has been the mainstay of the family. It's been her courage that has held us together. She has taught our other 2 daughters to love and protect their sister." Without Mr. Marino's powerful motive, few of us will be tempted to give as much time to any community activity as he does. And yet each of us, in his own way, can become a power, large or small, in the community. 7 steps toward achieving your proper place in the community. 1. Listen to the problems of others. Always allow your schedule to be sufficiently flexible so that if some acquaintance or friend comes to you for advice or help, you will find time at least to listen to him. "There are times," a friend of mine said, "when I get very blue. At such times, I wish desperately there was someone close by to tell me, 'There, don't worry, everything's going to be all right.'" Try to be a source of comfort and help, at least to your acquaintances and friends. Fill yourself so full of positive faith in yourself, in God, and in His blessings that you can pass on some of your faith to others from the overflow within yourself. 2. Join a group of fellow workers. If you are a newspaper man, join a press club. If you are a packager, a packaging association, a salesman, a group of salesmen. 3. Practice speaking in public. In any group you belong to, practice getting up on your feet and expressing your opinion on any matter that you really consider important. 4. Join a service group. Try to find a service group that appeals to you and learn what the requirements for membership are. Ask a friend of yours who belongs to that group if he would be willing to propose you for membership. Groups like the Optimist, Knights of Columbus, Rotarians, Kiwanians, Masons, and Elks usually undertake some service activity that interests their members. 5. Join whatever group furthers the cause in which you are most interested. Mental health, retarded children, or any other unselfish cause. Do some work for your group. Learn to prepare press notices for the newspapers or to give talks on the work of your group. 6. Join a parent-teacher association if you are a parent. In many states, men for a long time thought that parent-teacher associations were strictly feminine activities. But look what happened in Delaware. About 10 years ago, according to an Associated Dispatch, Delaware men learned that their public school system ranked 47th among the 48 states, Alaska and Hawaii. Shocked, the men of Delaware decided that the Parent Teachers Association needed men as well as women. After all, pointed out James H. Snowden of Wilmington, Delaware, men are parents too. By opening his mouth, he trapped himself into PTA leadership. Today he is treasurer of the National Congress of Parents and Teachers. Under his leadership, other Delaware men joined the PTA and used their influence to help the women get better instruction for the schools. Today, after 10 years of hard work on the part of both mothers and fathers in Delaware, Delaware's school system ranks 3rd from the top, according to this recent Associated Press dispatch. but it probably never would have achieved its present position if the men hadn't stepped in to take their rightful positions beside their wives in the PTA meetings. 7. Give some part of yourself away every day. The more you give, the more you will get back in terms of a richer, fuller life. Many of us start out in life by thinking in terms of getting as much as we can get out of it. Fine, except that as we get older, we discover there is no peace of mind that can possibly be achieved so long as we are out to get a yard for every foot we give. Let's try instead to give a yard for every foot, and we'll be liked for it. Perhaps even more important, we'll then have a nicer feeling about ourselves. It's great to be a go-getter, but greater to be a go-giver. The man who found a purpose higher than himself. Robert L. Turneau, head of a firm manufacturing earth-moving machines, was only a modest success in business until one day he decided to desert materialistic aims. He prayed to God for help in seeing what God wanted him to do. Later, he pledged himself to give 90% of what he made out of his business to God. Now, actually, I do not believe that one can make bargains with God, and I'm sure that wasn't Mr. Letourneau's purpose either. But he had come to the conclusion that life wasn't worth living if he pursued purely materialistic aims. Dedicating himself to a purpose higher than himself seemed to release springs of hidden creative power in him. From then on, he had the strength and the courage to overcome all obstacles. Almost anyone dedicating himself to a purpose beyond himself, whether it be building of a better church, school, or labor union, releases within himself powers he never knew he had. The friendless man who won friends through community activities. I have known men to lead narrow, unsatisfactory lives because they made personal success their only goal. Frederick had achieved financial success, but had made few friends in his own community. Most of the members of the community thought Fred and his wife self-centered. He'd drifted away from his church, but he decided to rejoin it for the sake of his youngsters. His wife began teaching Sunday school. Soon they were drawn into other community activities. When the church members started a drive for a new community center, Frederick was appointed chairman in charge of raising funds. To the affairs of his community, he now applied the same go-getting spirit he had formerly applied to his own business. He solicited ads for an advertising booklet, the proceeds from which were applied to the community center fund. Today, Frederick and his wife are among the most popular members of their community. The very same people who once thought they were self-centered now sing their praises most loudly. Somewhere there is a niche you can fill in your community. You're not really too busy. You may protest that you are. Do you really think so? Then, how do you account for the fact that our foremost business leaders, men like Leonard Firestone, president of Firestone Tire and Rubber Company of California, find time to be leaders in community activities? Mr. Firestone wasn't too busy to serve his community. He was recently given a special plaque for his promotion of brotherhood among all men through his work with the young, with his church, and with the National Conference of Christians and Jews. Another important business executive who found time for his community. The busiest men seem to find time to devote to important community activities. Wouldn't you say that successful business executive John W. Yates, president of the Yates Woods Insurance Agency, would find it difficult to devote time to such activities as being a member of the board of trustees to a college, chairman of the board of a home for the aged, and director of the well-run hospital? Yet he did such a fine job in all these community activities that he was recently given the Will G. Farrell Achievement Award by the Chamber of Commerce Life Insurance Committee of Los Angeles. The award was in recognition of outstanding public service outside regular business activities. What does one get out of all these contributions of time and energy to community affairs? The richest gift one gets is not the approval of others, but of one's own inner self. Dr. Alfred Adler made this very significant statement in his book, What Life Should Mean to You. All failures, neurotics, psychotics, criminals, drunkards, problem children, suicides, perverts, and prostitutes, are failures because they are lacking in fellow feeling and social interest. They approach the problems of occupation, friendship, and sex without the confidence that they can be solved by cooperation. The meaning they give to life is a private meaning. No one else is benefited by the achievement of their aims, and their interest stops short at their own persons. Their goal of success is a goal of mere fictitious personal superiority, and their triumphs have meaning only to themselves. Every human being strives for significance, but people always make mistakes if they do not see that their whole significance must consist in their contribution to the lives of others. So, do what you can for your community, not only for its sake, but also for the sake of your own mental health. So often, nowadays, we're criticized for seeking peace of mind in a world in which many things seem to have gone wrong. The critics forget one thing. By worrying and fretting about the state of the world, one wastes energy that could be used to help one's friends and one's own community. Sign in a corset shop. I like what Dr. Hugh M. Tyner said on this subject to a group of listeners at a meeting of the Mental Shop, an organization devoted to the study of psychology, religion, and metaphysics. I went past a corset shop, he said, with a sign that intrigued me. The sign read, "Just because the world is in a terrible shape is no reason why you should be." Points to remember. 1. Leadership starts with one other person besides yourself. Try to be a good, optimistic leader to one person who needs your reassurance. 2. Listen to the problems of others. Sometimes all a desperate or unhappy person needs is a good listener. 3. Join a group of your fellow workers and, in addition, at least one service organization. 4. Go to business meetings of your group. When you have something to say on a subject under discussion, get the recognition of your chairman and say it. 5. Try to serve your group in some way. 6. Every day, try to figure out some way in which you can give away some idea, some service, or some help to someone in need. 7. If misfortune comes to you in the shape of a personal or family tragedy, try to figure out a way in which you can help those who have to face similar tragedies. How to apply your 3 keys to becoming more useful to your community. Key 1. Think. I'll be a happier, healthier person if I do what I can to be a useful, helpful member of my community. Key 2. From the 7 suggestions made above, select those rules you can start following right now. Then indicate in your notebook just how you're going to follow one or more of these suggestions. For instance, if there is a lonely person you know, write in your notebook, I shall try to be a good, optimistic leader to Mr. X who needs my reassurance. Key 3. Act. Buy a community newspaper today. Read it carefully to find out if there are any current community meetings or activities in which you'd like to participate. If you read of an interesting meeting, phone the headquarters of the group involved and ask if you may come to the meeting. Also, tack up on your bulletin board any newspaper clippings relating to community activities and meetings in which you could participate this week or next week. Try to go to at least one interesting community meeting this week. Part 3, Chapter 16, How to Conquer Fears and Worries. When he was a young doctor at Miami Beach, Florida, Dr. Benjamin Feinsilver, now head of the neurological department of Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, was approached by the man behind the counter of the cafe where he usually ate. "Doctor," said the man hopefully, "maybe you can give me a medicine to help me stop worrying." Today, that same hopeful cry goes up from hundreds of thousands of individuals all over the world. A nation of worries. Because we in the United States have become a nation of worriers, pacifying pills are enjoying a tremendous vogue. We worry about our health. We worry about money. We worry about other people's opinions of us. We all want happiness and peace of mind. In the search for these blessings, millions of individuals take happy pills, which they hope will relieve their tensions and make them feel more cheerful. Pacifying pills aren't cure-alls. Though sometimes helpful in individual cases, pacifying pills aren't cure-alls for the worry habit. Psychiatrists say that some of them have dangerous side effects. They should never be taken without a doctor's prescription. Many of the pills do bring a few hours of apparent relief from worry, but none of them bring permanent peace of mind. Says Dr. Feinsilver, when you get a cinder in your eye, there are two ways to relieve the irritation. You can have Novocaine instilled in the eye and obtain some relief for a few hours, but when the effect of the Novocaine wears off, you'll feel the irritation again. The other method is to go to a doctor who will remove the cinder. He is using the only permanent method of getting rid of an effect, removing the cause. Taking pills to soothe your worries can be compared to the installation of Novocaine in the eye. For a time, the pill is effective, like the Novocaine in the eye, but the effect of the pill wears off, and you have to face your worries again. The cause hasn't been removed. To get rid of abnormal fears and worries, you have to find their cause. Once it's found, you have to do something about the cause. To eliminate the effects, attempts must be made to remove the cause. Some methods for conquering fear. How can we conquer fears and worries without the use of tranquilizing pills? Here are some methods that have proved helpful to almost everyone who has tried them. 1. Analyze exactly what you are afraid of. Any fear that is faced honestly and truthfully may be conquered if the source of the fear can be determined. But fear wears many masks. Some masks of fear. A young woman was afraid to leave her home and walk out on the street. She appeared to be afraid that if she took a walk, people would criticize her looks and her clothes. Her fear wore the mask of fear of criticism. In her childhood, she had been brought up to be very dependent on her parents. Her real fear was, who will support me if my parents die? How can I earn a living? Will I be forced to become a streetwalker? One obvious solution was for her to learn a specific trade, so that she wouldn't have to fear being left without any means of earning a respectable livelihood. He felt he had to tell his fiancée his secret. Sometimes fear may wear the mask of over-conscientiousness. For instance, there was a young man who felt it is his duty to tell his fiancée that he had once been stricken with a venereal disease. With proper medical treatment, he had recovered completely. His doctor advised him that there was no danger of any possible after effect. His psychiatrist advised him not to confess what had happened. I can't help feeling that I must tell her, the young man exploded. Fear may lurk behind a compulsive desire. The psychiatrist then probed more deeply into his motives. He discovered that the young man was afraid of love and marriage. He didn't want the ignominy of jilting his fiancée, but he hoped that she would be so repelled by the knowledge of his past illness, she would jilt him. Once he admitted what his real fears were, the psychiatrist was able, with time and patience, to help him overcome them. 2. Analyze your problem. Can something be done? The famous prayer of Alcoholics Anonymous, quoted in Chapter 1, embodies a philosophy of life that has helped change the attitudes of thousands of persons for the better. So I quote it again because this prayer may change your life. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. An Old English proverb puts it this way: for every evil under the sun, there is a remedy, or there is none. If there be one, try and find it. If there be none, never mind it. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale advises this attitude. I will do all that I can do about any problem. Beyond that, I shall trust in God. From A Guide to Confident Living. If something can be done, do it. If nothing can be done, stop stewing over it. Remember what Carlyle said about Margaret Fuller, the writer and feminist, when she remarked, "I accept the universe." By gad, she'd better, he muttered. We must all accept the inevitable or face mental disaster. 3. Compute the likelihood of the thing you fear happening. Before I took my first airplane flight, I must confess that I had a morbid fear of flying. We read so many stories of airplane accidents that we sometimes forget that newspapers feature these stories because they are the exception, not the rule. I began studying the statistics on air flights. Soon I discovered that traveling by air is actually much safer than traveling by car. I have never been afraid to step into a car driven by someone I know and trust. So why should I be afraid of a plane piloted by a man selected by one of the great airlines? Statistically, the chances of an accident are remote. Actual figures compiled by the Air Transport Association of America show that your chances of being fatally injured during 100 million miles of air travel are less than 0.8%. The danger of being killed in an auto or taxi accident in 100 million miles of travel is 2.6%. Similarly, someone terrified of surgery can check on the actual percentage of fatalities for that particular operation he dreads. He can also give himself the benefit of a better odds by selecting a surgeon with a great deal of experience who practices in a very reputable hospital. His own personal physician will usually be happy to recommend an excellent surgeon. 4. Do the thing you fear. If you have a concrete fear, you can often conquer it by doing the thing you fear. In fact, Emerson wrote, "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." The proprietor of a restaurant in North Hollywood, California, told me how his mother, a widow in Greece, often had to cross from one piece of property she owned to another at night. The shortest route was through a cemetery. Often she took a longer route to avoid this trip, which she dreaded. One day, however, she decided to take the shortcut. As she was walking through the cemetery, she suddenly heard a voice say, "Don't be afraid, there's nothing here to fear." She didn't know where the voice came from. To this day, she doesn't know whether the voice was real or merely the voice of her subconscious mind reassuring her. But suddenly she straightened her shoulders, the fear left her heart, she walked calmly through the dark night. From that time on, she was never afraid again. In order to get rid of a fear, we usually have to expose ourselves over and over again to the situation we fear. Suppose, for instance, you're afraid to get up in public and make a speech. If you get up in public only once or twice, you may never quite conquer your fear. But if you get up in public at every available opportunity, each time you will lose a little of your fear. Psychiatrists refer to this process as desensitization. How to conquer your fear of big shots. If you are afraid of meeting important people, you can lessen that fear by accepting every opportunity you can meet them. Remember, every big shot is human and has the same desires and problems you have. Maybe his income is 20 times yours, but it's a safe bet that he and his wife also worry about making income match outgo. We all have our own devices for eliminating our fears of others. A famous psychiatrist told me that when he was a young doctor, he was very much awed by the successful, important men who consulted him. Once they were lying nude on the operating table, he confessed, "I lost my fear of them. Since then, whenever I have an important speech to give, I lose my fear of speaking by imagining that all the members of my audience are in their birthday suits." 5. Learn to deal with problems as soon as they arise. Many of our worries arise from our postponement of decisions. Don't vacillate. It is better to make a wrong choice than to tear yourself apart making and unmaking the same decision. As Dr. Feinsilver says, where there is indecision, there are doubts. Where there are doubts, you have conflict. Where you have conflict, you have symptoms. The longer your indecisiveness lasts, the more difficult the problem seems to become. If you vacillate long enough, your state of anxiety can become chronic. There is no recipe for infallibility. The trouble with most of us is that we want some surefire recipe for being right 100% of the time. There is no such recipe. A successful business executive once said that the difference between success and failure lay in being right 52% of the time instead of 48% of the time. John M. Fox, president of Minute Maid, said in a recent speech before the New York Rotary Club, "In nearly every business decision, someone must have the courage to take positive action without having in hand all the facts and data to make that decision risk-free. To wait for all the necessary information may mean missing an opportunity, may mean a more aggressive competitor will come and take the important initiative, may mean a timing failure. Timing in business affairs is vital, so usually someone, a manager with courage, must stick his neck out and decide to do something now. The amount of time you take to make a decision should be based on its importance. Will my decision make any difference in my life a year from now?" Is a hackneyed question. Still, upon its answer depends the amount of time and thought you should devote to that decision. Don't waste too much time on trifling decisions. Probably it will make no difference a year from now whether you wear your blue suit or your gray one. If you're wasting time over that decision, you may be running away from a more important one. Write down advantages and disadvantages of important decisions. If you have a fairly important decision to make, get all the facts you can that have a bearing on it. Then slip a sheet of paper into your typewriter. On the left side, type the reasons in favor of the step you're thinking of taking. On the right side, list the reasons against it. If you don't type, do the same thing with pad and pencil. You might even assign a figure from 1 to 10 for each reason, giving your estimate of the importance of that factor. If you find your reasons for taking a particular step add up to 80 and the reasons against it to 110, you have a clear mathematical picture of what you ought to do. Then sleep on it. However, the unconscious mind is able to evaluate factors that the conscious mind sometimes skips. So sleep on your decision. Let the unconscious mind pass along its answer to your conscious mind. John M. Fox of Minute Maid claims that at times the decisions of the unconscious mind represent clearer and sounder thinking than you can produce with your everyday conscious mind. I knew a teacher who was hesitating between two jobs he had been offered. One paid a larger salary and the school was located in a better district. He was about to accept this job for what seemed like common sense reasons, but just before he made his decision, he dreamed that he was working under the principal of the other school. In his dream, he was very happy because the atmosphere of the school was free from pressure. This, upon awakening, reminded him of a factor he hadn't consciously considered. In the job he had been about to reject, he would be working under a man he respected completely. The atmosphere in that school was more relaxed. The other principal was hypercritical and might have made his life miserable. Accepting the guidance of his unconscious mind, he took the job where he would be working for less money, but in a more congenial atmosphere. 6. Overcome your fear of making mistakes. Many of our fears are based on past mistakes. Instead of profiting from our failures and learning from them, we let the memory of them paralyze us. For years, I was afraid to approach a certain editor because we had once had a slight misunderstanding. Actually, the memory of that misunderstanding loomed much larger in my mind than in his. Finally, I decided to take a chance, and I dropped a note to the editor, making a suggestion for his magazine. On his next trip to the West Coast, he asked the staff at his office to make an appointment so that he could see me in the limited time at his disposal. We had a very cordial talk, and he gave me several article assignments. Often we have nothing to lose by acting as if we were not afraid. The incident taught me a lesson. For years I had cut myself off from a possible magazine market because I was afraid that the editor might hold a grudge. But what did I really have to lose? My fear that my ideas might meet with a chilly reception wiped out a market for me. As soon as I conquered that foolish bugaboo, I won back the market. We might ask ourselves, what have I to lose if I act as though I did not fear the thing I do fear? When you discover you have nothing to lose, you release within yourself the power of positive action. Lester L. Coleman, doctor, wrote, "The greatest single handicap to the solution of most problems is anxiety that the solution will not be right." Very often a decision is wrong, but this decision can be altered when recognized and admitted and discussed. When an honest decision has been arrived at, there is no shame in the fact that it might be wrong. Live with the problem long enough to change it. Seemingly insurmountable problems have a remarkable way of reducing themselves when viewed in the clear light of proper perspective. There is no sane perspective in the presence of fear. Have faith in your decision and your right to change it. The truth about business worries. The Connecticut Mutual Life Insurance Company put out a booklet called Worry Go Round, which told in cartoon the truth about some modern business tensions. For instance, in one cartoon, we have the grinning monster High Tension sitting by listening smugly while an executive congratulates Bill on his promotion to the vice presidency. "Plenty of responsibility, but can you handle it?" says the executive. But the smirking demon, High Tension, laughs. He's afraid of responsibility, afraid of success. I'll have him jumping out of his skin after a week on the job. Isn't there some way in which you can slay the smirking demon? One way is to think a little more highly of yourself. This gives us rule number 7. 7. Have faith in your ability to solve problems. Faced with a new job, we are apt to go into a blue funk. Sometimes we're afraid we won't be equal to it. Here's a way to build up your realization that you probably can handle the job and handle it well. In the next half hour, take a refreshing shower or bath. Then sit down with a pad and pencil and write down the things you've accomplished that should help to equip you for the job. What are your strong points? Write them down. What are your weak points? Can you do anything to eliminate them? If you figure things up correctly, you'll find your strong points outweigh your weak ones, and with your strength, you'll be able to correct your weaknesses. Surely, there is some reason why the boss picked you for this job. He believes you can do it. Why should he be wrong? Why should you judge yourself more harshly than he judges you? Close the door on the past. Maybe you failed at something you tried to do 10 years ago. What of it? Certainly, you learned from that experience. In many ways, you are different from the man you were 10 years ago. It is utterly impossible to live in the past. Never mind yesterday. Today is a new day. This very day will bring you over 1,000 minutes, which you can use as you choose. Why hypnosis sometimes gives people unexpected powers. We see the past not as it really was, but disfigured and distorted by our frantic feelings of inferiority. We magnify our mistakes and thus multiply our fears, and we imagine a future we cannot possibly know. Under hypnosis, men who can lift only a few pounds under normal circumstances suddenly can lift great weights. Fighters who have lost their courage recover it. Sometimes men suffering battle shocks seem to become masters of themselves. Often the effects of hypnosis are only temporary. Still, they seem great while they last. What is it that drops away from men in hypnosis? The accumulated fears of a lifetime. The hypnotized person is able to act temporarily as though the past did not exist. Negative ideas temporarily disappear, and he can follow any suggestion that isn't contrary to his conscience. However, hypnosis is dangerous. It gets rid of symptoms, not causes. If the cause of a symptom remains, it may cause other, even more dangerous symptoms. At one time, Freud used hypnosis, then gave it up because he felt that it was unlikely to yield permanent results. Hypnosis is no parlor game. No amateur aware of the effects of its power on the mind should play with its great but sometimes deadly power. Suggestions made in hypnosis by some amateur hypnotists can hurt the mind instead of helping it. So unless you're under the care of a doctor or a psychiatrist who advises hypnosis as part of his treatment, it's wise to resist the amateurs who meddle with forces they understand only dimly. 8. Don't expect to be completely worry-free. Dr. John Marmer, a California psychiatrist, has said one is impressed by how many people operate under the assumption that to worry about anything is ipso facto neurotic and that the normal person should never worry. Most people apparently seem to be unaware of the rather obvious fact that to be unworried in the face of distressing or threatening reality situation may sometimes be a symptom of a serious mental disorder rather than a sign of mental health. Some fears and worries have a rational basis, while others are based on exaggeration and misinterpretation. But only a moron could go through life completely unconcerned and unworried every second of every day. Dr. Benjamin Feinsilver says, worry can serve as useful purpose. If you asked 100 men if they would like to be without pain, some of them might thoughtlessly say yes, but if their ability to feel pain were removed, it would be the most horrible thing that could happen. Without pain, we would lose one of the most powerful defensive mechanisms given to human organism. If you felt no pain, you might put your hand up against a red-hot stove and leave it there until you were minus a hand. In similar fashion, fear is a form of psychic pain. A realistic fear can also act defensively and keep us out of great difficulties. There may be times when a man may feel like punching a cop in the nose for giving him a ticket unjustly. Fear keeps him from following that impulse. If it weren't for that fear, he'd certainly land in jail. A crude illustration, but one which serves the purpose of clarification, laughed Dr. Feinsilver. If a situation is exaggerated and misinterpreted, fear becomes abnormal. A hypochondriac gets a pimple on the face and is afraid he is dying of cancer. He worries his family and himself to the point of distraction and finally goes to see a doctor. The doctor gives him the true diagnosis. It is not cancer. If he goes to see a psychiatrist about his abnormal worries, the psychiatrist will try to help him change his type of thinking, which causes him to misinterpret or exaggerate simple situations. What we want out of life is to acquit ourselves so that we can approve of how we ourselves have acted in emergencies. Faced with a situation he fears, every human being either 1. Runs away from it, 2. Faces it, or 3. Retreats temporarily, gathers his reserve strength together, and then attacks the situation again. You can't successfully flee from fear. We know that running away from any situation or fear is foolish. The man who absconds with bank's money will be caught sooner or later. The deserter who walks out on his wife and children will usually be brought to justice, and within the bar of his own mind, he is condemned the moment he acts against his inner convictions. The salesman with the cold doorknob hand who refuses to knock on everybody's door will never sell successfully. We can build our courage by our daily actions. We can, by our small daily actions, learn to triumph over small fears, and so build up the kind of courage that will help us face large emergencies successfully. 9. Compensate for physical shortcomings instead of worrying about them. Either those shortcomings can be changed, like a nose that can be altered by plastic surgery, or you can learn to compensate for them. For instance, take a man's height. The short man can be a much bigger person than he realizes. In his book, Management of the Mind, Edward J. McGoldrick, Jr. tells of the experience of Stuart P., undersized frail, who had grown into reticence and retirement from his schoolboy days. He was a brilliant young man, but completely self-effacing. His boss, the 4th vice president of an investment banking firm, took all the credit for the brilliant security analysis Stuart P. painstakingly prepared. Then one day, that particular vice president became ill. During his illness, the officers of the company discovered that Stewart was responsible for the excellent analysis previously attributed to his boss. So he was summoned to a meeting of the board. When he entered the room, he was conscious only of his size, 5 feet 2 inches in comparison with the chairman of the board, who was a whole foot taller. However, his ideas had made so excellent an impression that he was given a promotion and a bonus. The man who ceased to belittle. He went back to his office in a state of great confusion. Then he came to his senses. "I'm good," he thought for the first time. "I am good as any of them." I realized that the outlook stemming from my inferior physical size had actually made me a pygmy personality when I could have been a giant as easily. From then on, I've never given a thought to my size. So don't worry too much about physical shortcomings that can't be changed. The chances are you have desirable traits that make your friends and associates forget those physical shortcomings completely. 10. Have faith in God's ability to run His universe intelligently. In A Guide to Confident Living, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale says, "You do not need to be haunted by fear. Your religion can help you. It acts as a medicine, releasing power in your mind, the power of faith which drives away fear. Fear defeats us because we are unwilling to put our trust in what we regard as an ethereal thing, namely faith in God. But like the paratrooper, when we leap out, trusting to faith, we find that this mystic and apparently fragile thing actually holds us up." A prominent psychiatrist told me, "When I look out on the sky, sun, moon, and trees, a deep inner conviction grows in me that there is a God, creator of everything we see, maker of the immutable laws of nature." If a man feels that he can have a personal relationship with God by prayer, he should be encouraged to pray. Why we pray for help. We pray to God not only for help in time of trouble, but also for the inner courage that calms our own hearts. When he was alone on a life raft, Eddie Rickenbacker prayed to God for help. Help came, but if it hadn't come and he had discovered that he must die at sea, faith would have given him the courage to accept God's will. Henry J. Kaiser, the great industrialist, once said in a speech at the Marble Collegiate Church in New York, "Faith, it is my conviction, is the key to unlocking limitless powers of the mind, the heart, the soul. Faith in God, faith that right triumphs over wrong, faith that you can win out over disasters and setbacks, faith that smashes fear, faith in the ultimate realization of your hopes." 10 methods for facing your fears and worries. 1. Analyze exactly what you are afraid of. 2. Analyze your problem. Can something be done about it? 3. Compute the likelihood of the thing you fear happening. 4. Do the thing you fear. 5. Learn to deal with problems as soon as they arise. 6. Overcome your fear of making mistakes. Nobody is infallible. Why should you expect to be? 7. Have faith in your ability to solve problems. 8. Don't expect to be completely free of fears and worries. 9. Compensate for physical shortcomings that can't be changed. 10. Have faith in God's ability to run His universe intelligently. When you need more courage than you feel you have, pray for it. Part 3, Chapter 17, How to Develop the Greatness Within You. You have discovered that you are better than you think, because all your life you have been troubled by inferiority feelings. Those feelings are often based on childhood memories, and sometimes on casual remarks made by grown-ups when you were a child and had a tendency to accept everything adults said. These inferiority feelings lead to self-concepts that may be flagrantly wrong, but as long as you believe in them, you will be influenced by them. Therefore, it is important for you to discover and keep telling yourself that you are much better, abler, healthier, luckier individual than you ever dreamed you could be. As soon as you accept this as a fact, it will begin to influence your life. What you do with your life depends almost entirely on your self-concept. No matter how unreal the premise on which your self-concept is based, it makes real things happen to you. You may say, I can do this and I can't do that, simply because of remarks that others have made about you. The chances are that you underestimate your own abilities. William B. Gibbon Jr., president of the American Brake Shoe Company, once said that our inherent abilities are much greater than those we actually use. No one ever gave his best. Henry Ford once said, everyone can do more than he thinks he can. No matter what your abilities were originally, they can be developed, only if you choose to develop them. According to Prescott Leckie, who made a study of these subjects for 20 years, every human being strives to be a consistent whole. He rejects every trait that he thinks contradicts his self-image. Sometimes he rejects traits that would be greatly to his advantage because in a thoughtless moment, someone has told him that he was a bad speller, a poor mathematician, or very dull. If he accepts this estimate, it becomes part of his mental picture of himself, and from that time, he behaves accordingly. How re-evaluation changes people. Prescott Leckie found that a poor speller could be turned into an excellent speller by changing his ideas about his abilities. When he changed his opinion of himself, a high school student who had previously misspelled 55 words out of 100 and had failed most of his high school subjects became one of the best spellers in his school and got a general average of 90. After 3 talks with a counselor who changed her opinion of herself, a girl who had failed 4 times in Latin received a 92 on her next exam. She changed her concept of herself from, I'll never learn Latin to, of course I can master Latin, I'll keep trying. Using the Leckie method, a psychiatrist helped a patient get rid of a compulsive fear of the influence of certain numbers in his life. His patient was intelligent, and under hypnosis revealed the fact that he had a healthy respect for his own intelligence. After that, it was comparatively simple for the psychiatrist to convince him that as an intelligent man, it was inconsistent for him to be superstitious. Through constant positive affirmation, the psychiatrist persuaded him to give up his pet superstitious fear. The Leckie method works in business too. A salesman who thought of himself as a $5,000 a year man consistently earned that sum, no matter what territory he handled. After Elmer Wheeler, the brilliant author and business consultant, helped him realize that he could do better, this man began to earn a great deal more. Self-concepts might be compared to the houses built by the 3 little pigs. If a man, in a glow of alcoholism or unrealistic fantasy, builds up an image of himself that has no basis in reality, he's building his mental house of straw. A daydream about yourself that you don't follow up to make it come true can be blown down as easily as the house of straw. Like the second little pig, you can build your mental house out of sticks, and it can also be blown down. If you build your self-concept on casual remarks made by others, you're building it out of sticks. If you build your mental house out of bricks, who can knock it down? The wolves can come and howl at your door, but they will never knock down one single brick. Those bricks that build your self-concept can be scientific or psychological tests showing exactly what you can do, personal experiences, or the encouragement of a loved one. The bricks of successful thinking about yourself. If you have had personal experience in succeeding at something, no matter how small or big, you can build a house of your self-esteem on what you have done in the past. No matter how many failures you have had, somewhere in the midst of them was something you did well, which others praised. Build your life on what you have already done successfully, or what tests show you can do well. Nietzsche made his profound suggestion, become what thou art. He didn't ask us to become better than we really are. We knew that if we only became as great as we really are, we would all be better by far than we dream. We all have potentialities that are never realized. The first step in changing our lives or ourselves is to believe that we can change. Here are the ways in which each of us can change himself for the better. 1. Accept yourself. In a study made of a group of college students, it was found that those who were healthiest mentally nearly always accepted themselves, with all their faults and virtues, just as naturally as they accepted other phenomena of nature, the brooks, the valleys, the mountains, the trees. Don't continually tear yourself apart because you don't think you're worthy of God's love. Just as good parents love you, whether or not you deserve it, so God's love pours down on all of us, worthy or unworthy. Naturally, we should try to please Him as we would any loved parent. 2. Believe in yourself. God has given every man some special talent or mark of individuality. If you don't know what yours is, that doesn't mean you don't possess one. Keep seeking till you find out what your best talents are. 3. Think of how to make others happy. If you spend too much time wondering whether or not you're happy, you won't be. 4. Keep your hands and your mind occupied most of the time. 5. Be good to yourself. Be sure to allow for some recreational activities in your life. Always have an activity that will be fun for you planned for the near future. 6. Try to make others feel comfortable and at ease. When you meet someone for the first time, concentrate on trying to make him feel comfortable. That will keep you from feeling self-conscious. It is almost impossible for two thoughts to occupy the mind at the same time. If you concentrate on thinking about the other person, you won't give those around you the impression that you're self-centered. 7. Decide which of your worries can be cured. Then do something about them. If you have some worries you can't do anything about, learn to accept the situation involved without bitterness. 8. Love yourself, and then learn to love as many persons as you can besides yourself. If there are some you can't help disliking, try to be fair to them. Look for their good traits. 9. Believe in some power higher and greater than yourself. If you don't want to call that power God, then call it the Spirit of goodness. Believe also in a universe that is working towards some final good purpose. You won't always know what the final pattern will be, but try to make the stitches of you yourself so as fine and beautiful as possible, so you can be proud and happy about them. 10. Forget the past. Yesterday was a dream. Tomorrow may never come. Use this fragment of time as though it were your last day on earth. And this concludes the reading of You're Better Than You Think by Dora Albert. If you haven't done so, please do be kind enough and leave a like on here. And also, if you know of someone that could need this type of boost in their life, share this with them and subscribe to the channel.